I don't know why I get this, but he seems like the type of person who takes his stress out on other people.
Well, today we're excited to share, or I'm excited to share, our first actual potential story text. Nathan hasn't heard it, he hasn't read it. I'll share it with you and get his reaction. But first, we'll share a little bit about what else we've been doing this week. So Nathan, if you want to share what you've been doing, then I'll share some of what I've been doing.
Right. I spent some time looking into who our main character is, and I already knew somewhat who he was because our main character is really the only element of the story at all that is the same between the book that I started writing in high school and the book that we're writing now, even though it was supposed to be finishing that story. The story's completely different. The main character has a lot of similarities, and so I was building off of that and really looking at three main things about his character: his emotions, his desires, and his relationships. And as I looked into who he was in those areas, his relationships with his parents, his friends, his teachers, the things that he wanted, how he interacts with people, I got a much better feel for who he was, and that's going to affect the storytelling as well. And one of the things that I was doing kind of, I guess, semi-consciously as I was brainstorming the main character 1 is I was making him almost the polar opposite of main character 2, who you had kind of spent some time looking into previously. And I think that's going to make for an interesting dynamic as the two of them interact and how they have very different backgrounds, very different personalities, different desires, and so that's going to make things exciting as we move forward into developing our story.
And part of what I've been doing this past week, I've been studying, going through, I mentioned earlier a Coursera course on storytelling specialty, but this module was the craft of character. And I'll have a link, we'll put a link in the description. This isn't they're not a sponsor, this isn't an affiliate link, just this is what I've been going through to help develop my own skill of storytelling. And some of that from the story of plot, which was the previous module, some of that is what's going to show up in the part of the story that I'll share with Nathan later. Now, we'll may have more details next week, maybe the week after. And some of the other things that I've been doing this past week is fleshing out main character 2, main character 3, main character 4, just some little details about them that may or may not survive scrutiny as we look forward.
And one of the things that kind of gets me excited is looking at those details, getting to know all 4 of our main characters more, and seeing who they are as a person, even though we're the ones creating them, we're the ones writing about them and coming up with their background. It almost makes me more excited to write this story and to get to a resolution almost more on their behalf than on mine, because they're going through this journey and I want to see them reach the end of their journey. I want to see them grow as a character, grow in their relationships with each other, resolve this conflict, solve the problems that they're encountering, and just getting to know the characters kind of pushes me towards putting in the work that's necessary to create a story.
Right, it's like when we're reading a story, I don't want to put it down because I really want them to get this problem solved, but I can't solve it now just by continuing to read.
Right.
Because we have to come up with the story.
Yes.
And so part of that crafting of character is going to be the ability to write about the character, not ready to actually start writing about the main characters. But what I have done is just an exercise in my mind about storytelling. Is one of the things that we have to decide is what is our perspective and our point of view. Is this a first-person novel? Is it a third-person omniscient model where the narrator knows everything and can tell you what other people are thinking? And I think what we've reached, at least tentatively, is that this needs to be a third-person limited perspective where every scene in the story is told from the perspective of one of the main characters. And if the primary main character is in the scene, then it's told from his perspective. Which means, as narrators, as writers, we're not allowed to tell you what other characters are thinking unless it is the point of view character. So as we're introducing a minor character, the only thing we can share is what the main character observes. So this was an exercise. It's not exactly a spoiler. It's more of a teaser, if that, because what I'm about to share with you may not be in the book. Even the minor character that we're introducing may not even be in the book. But this is probably the severalth draft of what I've put together, iterated over it in my head, and then put it on paper. This is my first attempt at writing from a main character's point of view. And what I'm going to ask after you hear this is for you to see if you can describe the character and personality of the secondary character, of the minor character, based only on the description I share from the main character's perspective.
All right. Do you have written down there somewhere or an idea of the kind of what you're trying to get across?
I have in my head what
Okay.
I'm hoping that you can discover about whether I don't know what this says about my ability to write or what, but here's the paragraph that I have in draft mode.
All right.
The door to the director's office was open. Arnold knocked on the frame and peered in. The director seemed not to notice, still glowering at his computer monitor. He sighed and closed his eyes only to reopen them a few seconds later and wince, apparently at his own reflection in the glass. With one hand he reached for his furrowed brow and wiped a bead of sweat, which he used to coax a stray hair back into conformity.
Wow.
So my question is, what impression do you get about the director's personality and character from that description, if any?
First thing that came to my mind, this isn't really personality and character, but he's stressed.
Okay.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. He's stressed. He seems to be annoyed at Arnold coming and interrupting his stress.
Okay.
Almost. What else? He almost seems like the type of person, so he's the director of something. He's a director of something, so he's somebody who has authority. He seems like the type of, I don't know why I get this, but he seems like the type of person who takes his stress out on other people.
Okay.
And he might be about to lash out at Arnold for interrupting him, and don't you know I've got all this stuff going on?
Okay.
I don't know, that's the impression that I got.
Okay. Which says, I need to make it clear that he didn't even notice that Arnold was there. And I'm not sure how to convey that. I said he seemed not to notice, but,
Yes.
because I can't tell you that he didn't.
Right. I interpreted your saying that his closing his eyes, his deep sigh, I interpreted that as a response to Arnold.
Interesting. Okay.
That it was, oh, come on, this guy again.
Oh.
Or whether he's met him before or not, I was like, come on, another interruption.
No, this is my attempt to... First, yes, he is stressed. You got that. He's stressed about his role, his job. There was some symbolism I was attempting.
Okay.
And you actually picked up the end result of the symbolism, whether you noticed the symbolism or not. And that was, he takes his stress out on other people. The symbolism is, he wiped his sweat, and which is the result of his stress and his tension, and used that to coax his hair back into conformity.
Ah. So now I'm wondering why I got that impression that you wanted me to get. Is it because of the symbolism you were trying to get across?
I don't know. But what I wanted to separate was, first he's stressed, but then I needed to switch to show that for some reason he then notices his reflection. And so his attention shifts not to Arnold, but to the noticing of his reflection, and something is out of place. I must fix the out of place. So from what you understand, why does he need conformity?
Why does he need conformity? Because nonconformity provides stress to him. If people conform, it makes his job easier.
It's not that he needs power. It's that he's responding not out of a grasp for power, but out of fear.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for that. That was first attempt. Like I said, several-th draft. Probably have more drafts to come if that character even makes it into the book. But next week is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to be here. We're each going to be on the road. We're going to be in separate places. And so whatever we have for next week, it will be recorded while we're separate, and then we'll come back together again and regroup. In the meantime, I'll ask you to share in the comments any great examples that you've seen of the kinds of introduction of a secondary character through the perspective of a main character that is extremely effective at communicating the personality and character of that secondary character without telling you anything about them. And we look forward then to seeing you next week when we will continue this journey.